The small workshop smelled of metal, oil, and determination. Broken tools lay scattered on the wooden table, and in the middle of the mess sat a young man staring at another failed attempt. His name was Armin. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked at the small machine in front of him. It was supposed to be simple, a low-cost water pump he wanted to build for farmers in his village. But after months of effort, it still didn't work. He pressed the switch. The motor made a weak sound, then stopped. Failure number 27. Armin leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. Outside, he could hear people laughing. Some of them were probably the same people who had told him, "This won't work. You're wasting your time." But Armin didn't start this for fame or money. He started because of his father. Years ago, his father had stood in a dry field, staring at cracked soil. Their crops had failed because they couldn't afford an expensive irrigation system. Armin remembered his father saying, "If water was cheap, farmers wouldn't suffer like this." That sentence stayed with him. After finishing school, instead of going to the city, Armin turned their old storage room into a workshop. He collected scrap motors, wires, and pipes. He watched free tutorials whenever he found internet access. He learned by trying and by failing. Failure 28 came the next morning. Failure 29 in the afternoon. By the end of the week, he had reached failure number 34. His friend Bilal visited one evening and looked at the broken parts. "Armin, you've been doing this for months," Bilal said. "Why don't you try for a job? At least you'll earn something." Armin smiled weakly. "If I stop now, all these failures mean nothing." Bilal shook his head. "Or maybe they already do." After Bilal left, Armin sat quietly. Doubt slowly crept into his mind. What if everyone was right? What if he was just chasing something impossible? The next day, he didn't go to the workshop. He spent the morning helping his father in the fields. The sun was harsh, and the soil was still dry. His father looked tired. "Beta," his father said gently, "you don't have to fix everything. Life doesn't work like that." Armin nodded, but something inside him stirred. He remembered why he had started. That evening, he went back to the workshop. Failure number 40. This time, he didn't feel as disappointed. Instead, he picked up a notebook and wrote, "What did I learn today?" He started documenting every mistake: wrong voltage, weak pipe, loose connection. Slowly, his failures turned into lessons. Days passed, then weeks. People in the village began calling him the boy who plays with junk. Some laughed when they saw him carrying old motors. Others said he was stubborn. By the time he reached failure number 58, even his savings were almost gone. He sold his old bicycle to buy better wiring. It was a tough decision, but he didn't hesitate. One night, while working under a dim bulb, the power went out. The workshop went dark. Armin sat there silently. The silence felt heavy. He whispered to himself, "Maybe I should stop." But then he looked at the list on the wall, all the failures written in black marker. Instead of discouraging him, they reminded him how far he had come. He stood up, lit a small candle, and kept working. Failure number 73. Failure number 81. Each time, he adjusted something small. Each time, he moved a little closer without realizing it. One afternoon, a group of kids gathered outside his workshop, watching him. "Will it ever work?" one of them asked. Armin smiled. "Yes, maybe not today, but one day." By the time he reached failure number 99, his hands were rough, his eyes tired, but his determination stronger than ever. He prepared for attempt number 100. He connected the wires carefully, tightened every screw, and placed the pipe into a bucket of water. His heart beat faster. This wasn't just another attempt. This felt different. He took a deep breath and reached for the switch. And in that moment, everything depended on what would happen next. Armin's fingers trembled slightly as he pressed the switch. For a second, nothing happened. Then the motor hummed louder than before. The pipe shook, and suddenly a thin stream of water shot out into the bucket. Armin froze. He didn't move. He just stared as the stream grew stronger. Water. Real, flowing water. After 100 failures, it finally worked. Armin stepped back, almost afraid it would stop if he touched anything. But the pump kept running. The bucket filled slowly, then faster. A smile spread across his face, and within seconds, tears followed. He laughed and wiped his eyes at the same time. "I did it," he whispered. He ran outside and called his father. "Abu, come quickly." His father walked in, confused. When he saw the water flowing, he stopped at the door. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he walked closer, touched the water, and looked at Armin. "You made this?" he asked softly. Armin nodded. His father's eyes filled with pride. "You didn't fail 100 times. You learned 100 ways that didn't work." The next morning, Armin installed the pump in their field. The sun had just risen when he switched it on. Water flowed through the dry soil, spreading life across the land. Neighbors gathered, watching in disbelief. One farmer stepped forward. "How much does it cost?" Armin hesitated. "Less than half of what the market ones cost." The man looked shocked. "Can you make one for me?" Within days, more farmers approached him. The same people who once laughed now stood in line, asking for help. Armin worked day and night, building more pumps with improved designs. Word spread beyond the village. A local teacher recorded a short video of Armin explaining his journey. The clip was shared online. Within hours, thousands watched it. Comments poured in. True inspiration. This is real success. Never give up. But the real turning point came a week later. A white car stopped outside his small workshop. Two people stepped out, introducing themselves as representatives from a regional innovation program. They had seen the video. "We want to support you," one of them said, "with funding, tools, and a proper workspace." Armin was speechless. They helped him register his design, improve production, and connect with more farmers. Within months, his small idea reached hundreds of fields. Crops improved. Water became affordable. Lives changed. One evening, Armin stood in his new workshop. On the wall, he had framed something special, the page listing his first 100 failures. A young student visiting the workshop asked, "Why keep this? You succeeded now." Armin smiled, "Because this is the real success. Without these failures, nothing else exists." The boy looked inspired. "So failure isn't bad." Armin shook his head. "Failure is only bad if you stop." Years later, Armin was invited to speak at a large event. He stood on stage in front of hundreds of people. Bright lights, cameras, applause. Everything felt surreal. He began with one simple line. "I didn't succeed on my first try, or my 10th, or my 50th. I succeeded because I refused to quit after my 100th. The audience stood and clapped. Back in his village, the fields were greener than ever. Farmers no longer feared dry seasons. And in the middle of it all, Armin still worked quietly, improving his designs. Because for him, success wasn't the end. It was just proof that persistence can turn even 100 failures into one powerful victory. And that was the moment everyone realized he didn't just build a machine. He built hope.